Hi everyone, Derived Energy here. Today I'll be reading an article I found online. It came with a newspaper. I think it was the Independent or the Guardian. I'll leave a link in the description bar below. And it's entitled Marriage Without Children, the Key to Bliss. And the subtitle is Married Life is the Key to Happiness, but having children can ruin it all, a psychologist claims. So I'm going to read the article out now. Couples only recover their blissful existence once their offspring have left the nest, says Daniel Gilbert, a professor of psychology at Harvard University. He told a conference in Sydney that studies in America and Europe had shown that feelings of contentment spike during the early years of marriage but fall heavily after having children. Professor Gilbert said that a desire by couples to get a return on the time and money they have invested in their lives is part of the reason they persuade themselves that their offspring are enhancing their lives. So here he's arguing that because raising children can be such a tiring, expensive, time-consuming, stressful endeavour, the parents recognise that and the sacrifices that they've had to make to bring their children up. So they fool themselves that it's been a more satisfactory experience being a parent than it in actuality has. So that's the slant he gives on it. That's one of the explanations he proffers. Continuing with the article. Figures show that married people are in almost every way happier than unmarried people, whether they are single, divorced, cohabiting, he said. Married people live longer, married people earn more money per capita, married people have more sex and enjoy it more. However, when couples have children, happiness levels plummet. Children do seem to increase happiness while you're expecting them, but as soon as you have them, trouble sets in, he told the Happiness and Causes conference. So that's interesting. So he's arguing that when parents anticipate bringing a new child into existence, their happiness levels are high, but once they actually have the children, their happiness levels plummet. And this is what we see in antenatal depression, which affects about between 8 and 10% of the female population when they become pregnant. So that's an interesting observation made by this professor. Okay, continuing on. Children do seem to increase happiness while you're expecting them, but as soon as you have them, trouble sets in, he told the Happiness and Its Causes conference. Right, we've been there. People are extremely happy before they have children, and then their happiness goes down, and it takes another big hit when kids reach adolescence. So that's interesting. So it's not just being a parent to children, you've also got to bear in mind being a parent to adolescents. And he's arguing here again that raising teenagers can really decrease your satisfaction with your life. Right. When does it come back to its original baseline? Oh, about the time the children grow up and go away. So he's noticed a trend here when couples, they get very happy and excited just before they have their child, and then once they have their child, their happiness levels plummet, and then he's arguing that they don't actually return to their original baseline before they considered having the children, until their children have left home. So it's like having children reduces people's happiness rather than increases their happiness, which is fascinating. Right, where are we? Money was part of the reason that couples believed that their children brought them happiness, he said. Psychological studies have shown that people appreciate products more. Obviously, this is great, isn't it? It's comparing having children to buying products. If they pay more for them, We pay for children in time, attention, blood, sweat and tears. What kind of idiots would we be to devote all of that to the rearing of our young if they didn't bring us some happiness, he said. Beats me. Repeated studies have shown that the period immediately surrounding childbirth can be the most stressful that couples experience. Psychologists have also found that couples with children are less satisfied with their marriage than those without. So if you want a satisfying marriage, then you could do a lot worse than abstaining from procreation. Research in the Netherlands in the 1990s showed that couples who had 2 children were less happy than those with none. But some experts believe that it is not having children itself that breeds the discontent. Richard Tunney of the University of Nottingham said, "From an evolutionary point of view, we are programmed to procreate." Well, I disagree with that. From an evolutionary perspective, we're programmed to copulate, to have sex, but we're not genetically programmed to bear children. Like when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, did 2 velociraptors think of making a little baby velociraptor when they were copulating? I very much doubt that they were. It's like, from an evolutionary perspective, all that's necessary is to inject a need into people who want to have sex, and once that's programmed, then procreation is inevitable unless you use contraception. But of course, now we're in the early 21st century, we have contraception to use. So the way it worked in the past was, we evolved a strong biological desire for sex, and that would just ensure that people procreate, because by having sex then they would be procreating. So that's as far as biology, as DNA had to take us. It didn't have to actually create a huge capacity to be absolutely delighted with the chores and the hard work and the stress of rearing little miniature copies of ourselves. So I would strongly disagree with the argument here that we're programmed to procreate. I think we're programmed to have sex. I don't think we're programmed to procreate. So that argument doesn't hold any water for me, I'm afraid. Okay, so I'm now going to read out some comments that people made and tell you what I think about the comments. Like John Smith, I'm going to be totally honest. I never wanted kids, but my husband did, so we had one. I love my daughter, but if I could go back and redo things, I would. I used to have a wonderful marriage, a good job, hobbies, time to do things I wanted to do. I will have to get through this life as it is, but if I could do this again, I wouldn't have married my husband and found a man who didn't want children. I envy child-free couples. So there are people here who've actually had children and then regretted them. So not only have they unnecessarily brought another person into the world, and all the pain and suffering and the death of that person they created can be directly attributable in causality to that person's decision to procreate. Now, not only that, but also by having the child and creating the new life, this woman, this lady, her happiness levels have plummeted due to being coaxed into having a child when she wasn't happy or had a strong desire to do it. And now they've had the child, and she's resentful. She's envious of people who don't have of people who don't have children. So it's creating resentment and conflict between the husband and the wife, and also if she feels resentful, it's not implausible that she would feel resentful to a child as well, even if only on a subconscious level. So that's going to impact upon the way the mother relates to her child. Let's read another comment. There are far too many people in the world already, and the planet cannot handle many more. Anyone who has children does so for selfish reasons. Great to hear it make them miserable. And he or she's put a little smiley face. Now, I wouldn't quite take that attitude. I mean, I don't delight in other people being miserable, but on a positive slant, you know, if having children does have a general trend to make people less happy than they were before they had the children, then this is another weapon in the anti-natalism debate, because this is more fuel for the debate, because obviously for a lot of people the fact that they're quite willing to inflict unnecessary pain, suffering and death on their own child purely for their own selfish and self-centered gratification, then these kinds of surveys and arguments can be used to diffuse, if you like, the completely irrational and over the top sort of emotional pining to want to become a parent. So from that perspective, you know, this is useful information, useful opinions, useful arguments, you know, and interesting themes to discuss in relation to an antinatalism debate. Let's read another comment. I was adopted at 6 weeks old into a family where I was sexually abused. I have not been able to have children due to my husband having a brain tumour, but at 43 I am determined to look to our future together and be thankful for all that we have. There is much evil in the world, but good will always win. What? There is much evil in the world, but good will always win? Where on earth do people get these ideas from? I mean, it's just like when people grow up reading fairy tales, they just kind of like internalize this kind of meme, this pernicious, overly optimistic meme that everything's going to be alright and good always overcomes evil. But, you know, it's just superstitious mush. Things go wrong all the time, you know. And I mean, all our lives end in a very undignified manner, really. I mean, and painful, often painful and stressful, you know, dying. So that's the end of a story. So, and that's not a very nice way to end a story. So, good does not always overcome evil. Well, honestly, these people are unbelievable. Right, I'm a 32-year-old male. Currently, my wife, 26, and me don't have kids, and we don't want to have kids. We can go anywhere. We don't have to worry about a babysitter, neither about making less money or losing our job or being unemployed. Plus, I can walk inside the house all day long naked if I want. I can make love with my wife on the kitchen table, in the living room. There is no one to see us. Isn't that freedom? Yeah, it sounds quite free to me, compared to having to look after a couple of children. Right. Next one. We are a society that is overpopulated and we don't have enough money to fully take care of children in the foster care system. So it's interesting that people who choose not to have children are called selfish. Yeah, why call someone selfish if they're not having any children? It's the parents who are selfish. When in reality they are being selfless by depriving themselves of having children so they won't end up hurting an innocent soul like most people do when they have children and really don't have the time, energy and money to support them. Well, I think you could have all the money and energy in the world and time to give to your children, but horrible things are still going to happen to them. So if you as a parent have a lot of time, money and energy, that could benefit your child, but bad things will still happen to your child regardless of that. Life's more about money, time and energy. Next one. I'll skip that one. Society should stop with the pressure thing. Many people should not have kids. Well, actually, I'd argue that no one should have kids. I am happily married for 6 years and we have decided not to have children. Many people do not understand this. I'm not sure why people feel that we need to define ourselves by children. Yeah, society, just leave off people's backs if they don't have children. You know, it's interesting that people can get, you know, short with people who don't have children. I mean, I think an interesting possible explanation for this is if you have a child, then subconsciously, unconsciously, you you're aware that you've imposed life on an innocent human being. So when you see people who don't have children, then that could possibly make you feel guilty, um, and you, there's some anger, some residual anger in their system. So they take it out on the people who don't have children. It's a kind of displacement of anger. It's like almost like people are threatened by other people's childlessness. You know, I mean, there's obviously something going on there psychologically. So why do they feel threatened? Why do they make these snidey remarks and look down on people because they don't have any children? It doesn't make any sense. Right, next one. Children are overrated. Personally, I cannot abide the smell of them. Rancid little creatures. Hey, I didn't say that. And he also says they should come with a mute button. Okay, continuing on, next comment. In case you idiots cannot read, it's a study on average. Just because you have 3 kids and are perfectly fine, that doesn't mean that everyone is. You're one out of how many million families, so don't point to your situation as a universal trend. What horrible reasoning. Yes, I agree. I mean, no doubt I'm going to get some smart aleck here saying, I'm a parent and yeah, it made me really happy. I'm the happiest I've ever been. And they may be right, from their subjective appraisal of things, but this is a trend. It's not an accurate rendering of every situation where people have children. He's just done a collection of samples and he's extrapolated from that using methods, psychological methods and methodology and the statistics and everything, and he's come up with his findings and he's had it published, and it's created an amount of discourse in the community. So yeah, I mean, it's talking about trends, a tendency, a tenuous causal link, if you like, and yeah, these results are quite illuminating. So it's like wars in human history. It's a trend. You can see themes emerging in the way that people respond to their environments. Okay. I can't believe some of the comments I have read. I have dreamt my whole life of having children. I'm married, and for the last 6 years we have been trying for a baby. We have had 2 attempts at IVF. I have had 2 ectopic pregnancies and I am still waiting for my dream to come true. These people who moan about their children should count themselves lucky. I would swap my life with them any day. I would love to experience morning sickness. Well, that's masochistic, isn't it? I'd love to experience a form of sickness. I wouldn't love to experience any type of sickness. I would sell my soul to the devil to have a baby. How ironic that is. I would sell my soul to the devil to have a baby. In a way, you are selling your soul to a baby, because you're inflicting unnecessary pain, suffering on your child. You're allowing all that pain, suffering and death to befall your child when the child doesn't want to come into existence. So it is at its core a selfish and aggressive act. So yeah, it is like selling your soul to a devil, but of course there isn't such thing as a devil. Next one, reading along. My husband and I married 2 years ago. We have just turned 30. We love our lives so much. We go on holidays regularly, do spur of the moment things, spend lots of time together and have lots of money, all because we don't have children. So this is a positive decision that was made by this couple to not have children because they're happy now. I love my kids. I didn't want kids. My wife did. We have them. 2 she planned. The little one was a oops. Well, so he just said that she planned both kids, but then he says that it was an oops, so it was an accident. So that's a bit inconsistent. I work a lot for money reasons and for personal reasons. This is not the life I would have chosen. Kids stuff bores me down to Toys R Us and cartoons. Even though I love the kids, I would go back and make the choice to not do it again. It won't happen again because I'm fixed. Now all I have to do is try to live this life that I didn't want and try not to resent my wife and kids. If I can do it, it will. If I can do it, it will be a miracle. So again, this is a case of resentment boiling up, between the husband and the wife, and between the husband and the children, because the woman was pushy, or because one of the partners was pushy, and it's created a worse state of affairs. This guy's life is severely compromised due to having children. Someone says the professor probably is unable to have children on his own. Well, that's just a snide comment, isn't it? That's not a constructive comment. It's like when people call David Benatar a loser. I mean, he's head of the philosophy department at Cape Town University, and people call him a loser just because they don't like what he's saying. And it's a similar case here, I think. The person who wrote this didn't like what he was saying about the impact that having children can have on happiness levels, so he's just thrown an ad hominem attack at the professor. Very disingenuous. Okay, well, that's concluding the video. Take care. Hope it's given you all things to think about.